Get in here, get in here, get in here, and listen to me close, okay? I'm about to tell you something that's going to change your entire dating life. And baby, this might be uncomfortable to hear, but you need to hear it. Your anxious attachment is killing your feminine energy. And that anxious energy is exactly what's pushing men away. Now, let me explain what I mean by anxious attachment. If you find yourself constantly worrying about whether he's losing interest, if you're checking your phone every 5 minutes waiting for his text, if you're overanalyzing every little thing he says or doesn't say, if you feel like you need constant reassurance that he still likes you, if you're always trying to prove your worth to him, if you feel clingy and you hate that you feel that way but you can't seem to stop, baby, that's anxious attachment. And it's destroying your ability to be in your feminine energy. It's making you chase when you should be receiving. It's making you overgive when you should be allowing. It's making you masculine when you need to be feminine. And here's the painful truth. Men can feel your anxiety. They can sense your desperation. They can tell when you're operating from fear instead of confidence. And that anxious, fearful, clingy energy, it repels masculine men. It pushes them away. It kills attraction. But here's the good news. You can change this. You can heal your anxious attachment. You can get back into your feminine energy. You can learn to show up with softness and confidence instead of fear and desperation. And when you do, baby, everything changes. Men stop pulling away. They start pursuing. They start stepping up because you've become magnetically attractive in a way you weren't before. So today I'm going to teach you exactly how to do this. I'm going to teach you how to recognize when your anxious attachment is taking over. I'm going to teach you how to calm your nervous system. I'm going to teach you how to regulate your emotions. And I'm going to teach you how to get back into your feminine power so you can stop chasing and start receiving the love you deserve. All right, let's get into it. Let me start by breaking down exactly how anxious attachment shows up in dating and relationships and why it kills attraction. Anxious attachment comes from a place of fear. Fear that you're not enough. Fear that he's going to leave. Fear that you're going to lose him. Fear that if you don't do enough, give enough, be enough, he's going to find someone better. And that fear drives specific behaviors that push men away. Let me tell you what those behaviors look like. Behavior 1, you chase. When he pulls back even a little bit, when he takes a few hours to text back, when he seems slightly distant, you chase. You reach out more, you text more, you try to close the distance he's creating. You're pursuing him because you're afraid of losing him. But here's what happens. Chasing is masculine energy. And when you're in masculine energy, he shifts to feminine energy. And a man in feminine energy is passive. He's not pursuing, he's receiving. And that kills the polarity that creates attraction. Behavior 2. You over-explain. When there's any kind of conflict or misunderstanding, you send paragraphs explaining yourself. You're trying to make him understand. You're trying to fix it. You're trying to control his perception of you. But that over-explaining comes across as desperate. It comes across as insecure. And it makes him pull back even more. Behavior 3. You constantly seek reassurance. Do you still like me? Are we okay? Are you mad at me? Is something wrong? You're constantly checking in because you're anxious and you need him to calm your anxiety by validating that he still wants you. But that constant need for reassurance is exhausting for him. It makes him feel like he can never do enough, and it makes him want to create distance. Behavior 4, you overgive. You're always doing things for him, always trying to help. Always trying to prove your value. You're cooking for him. You're solving his problems. You're being his therapist. You're trying to make yourself indispensable because you're afraid if you don't give enough, he'll leave. But overgiving is masculine energy. You're providing instead of receiving. You're giving from a place of fear instead of generosity. And that imbalance kills attraction. Behavior 5. You analyze everything. He takes longer to text back and you're analyzing why. He seems quieter than usual and you're analyzing what you did wrong. He doesn't say, I love you at the end of a call, and you're analyzing what that means. All that analysis, all that mental energy spent worrying and trying to figure him out, it creates anxiety that he can feel. And that anxiety pushes him away. Behavior 6. You lose yourself. You're so focused on him, on keeping him, on making sure he doesn't leave, that you stop living your own life. Your friends take a back seat. Your hobbies disappear. Your goals get put on hold. Your whole world becomes about him and whether he still wants you. And that lack of a life, that dependence on him for your happiness, it's suffocating. It makes you less attractive because you're no longer the full, vibrant woman he was initially attracted to. Now, let me tell you why all of this kills attraction. Attraction is created through polarity. Masculine energy is attracted to feminine energy. Feminine energy is attracted to masculine energy. But when you're anxious, when you're in fear mode, you're operating in masculine energy. You're chasing, you're managing, you're controlling, you're providing, and that forces him into feminine energy. And when there's no polarity, attraction dies. On top of that, anxious energy is just not attractive. Nobody is attracted to desperation. Nobody is attracted to neediness. Nobody is attracted to fear. Men are attracted to confidence, to peace, to feminine softness, to a woman who's secure in herself and not constantly seeking validation. So your anxious attachment, that fear-based, clingy, overgiving, chasing energy, it's literally killing any attraction he might have felt for you. All right, technique number 1, the nervous system reset. This is how you calm your anxiety in the moment when it's taking over. Here's what happens when you're anxiously attached. Something triggers you. He doesn't text back right away. He seems distant. He cancels plans. Whatever it is, something happens and your nervous system goes into panic mode. Your heart rate increases. Your thoughts start racing. You feel this urgent need to do something to fix it, to reach out, to chase, to get reassurance. That's your nervous system in fight or flight mode. That's your anxiety taking over. And if you act from that place, if you chase or over-explain or seek reassurance while you're in that anxious state, you're going to push him away. You're going to do damage to the relationship. So you need to learn how to reset your nervous system. You need to learn how to calm yourself down before you act. Here's how you do the nervous system reset. Step 1, notice when you're triggered. The first step is awareness. You need to recognize when your anxiety is taking over. You need to notice the physical sensations, the racing heart, the tight chest, the spiral of anxious thoughts. When you notice these things, you pause. You say to yourself, I'm triggered right now. My anxiety is taking over. I need to calm down before I do anything. That awareness alone starts to shift you out of the panic. Step 2, breathe. This sounds simple, but it's powerful. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow and fast. That signals to your brain that you're in danger, which increases the anxiety. So you intentionally slow your breathing. You breathe in deeply through your nose for a count of 4. You hold for a count of 4. You breathe out through your mouth for a count of 6. You repeat this several times. Deep, slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It signals to your brain that you're safe. It calms your body down. Step 3, ground yourself in the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future. It's all about what might happen. What if he's losing interest? What if he meets someone else? What if I'm not enough? So you bring yourself back to the present. You look around the room and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This grounds you in the present moment and interrupts the anxious spiral about the future. Step 4, challenge the anxious thoughts. Your anxiety is telling you a story. He's losing interest. He's going to leave. I'm not enough. But that story isn't necessarily true, so you challenge it. You ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have for this? Is this fact, or is this my anxiety talking? Usually, you realize you're catastrophizing. You're making up worst case scenarios based on very little actual evidence. Step 5, wait before you act. This is the most important step. Once you've calmed your nervous system, you still don't act immediately. You wait, you give yourself time. If you want to text him, you wait at least an hour. If you want to call him, you wait until tomorrow. If you want to have a big conversation, you wait until you're completely calm. You create space between the trigger and your response. And in that space, your feminine energy can return. Now, let me tell you why the nervous system reset is so important. When you act from anxiety, you always push men away. Always. Because you're acting from fear, from desperation, from neediness. But when you reset your nervous system first, when you calm yourself down, you can respond from a place of feminine power instead of anxious fear. And that changes everything. The nervous system reset is your emergency brake. It's what stops you from doing damage when your anxiety is triggered. It's what allows you to show up in your feminine energy instead of your anxious, masculine energy. Technique number 2, the life focus. This is where you redirect all that anxious energy away from him and toward building your own full, abundant life. Here's what happens with anxious attachment. Your whole life becomes about him. All your mental energy goes to thinking about him, worrying about him, analyzing him. All your emotional energy goes to managing the relationship, trying to keep him, trying to make sure he doesn't leave. You have no energy left for yourself, for your own life, for your own goals and dreams and friendships and interests. And that creates 2 problems. One, it makes you dependent on him for your happiness. If he's good, you're good. If he's distant, you're miserable. Your emotional state is completely dependent on his behavior. 2, it makes you less attractive. The woman he was initially attracted to, that vibrant, full woman with her own life, she's gone. Now you're just the woman who's obsessed with him, and that's not attractive. So you need to redirect your energy. You need to build your own life again. You need to make your world so full, so rich, so abundant that whether he texts back or not becomes less important because you have so much else going on. Here's how you do the life focus. Element 1, let's reconnect with your friendships. You've probably been neglecting your friends because all your energy has been going to him. So you reach back out. You make plans. You invest in those relationships again. And here's what's important. When you're with your friends, you're fully present. You're not on your phone checking to see if he texted. You're not talking about him the whole time. You're actually present and engaged in your friendships. This fills your social cup. It gives you connection and support that doesn't come from him. And that makes you less dependent on him for your emotional needs. Element 2, pursue your goals and passions. What did you want to do before all your energy went to worrying about this relationship? What goals did you have? What interests did you want to pursue? You go back to those. You start working on your career goals. You start that hobby you've been thinking about. You take that class. You work on that project. You give your mental and emotional energy somewhere productive to go instead of spiraling in anxiety about him. Element 3, take care of your physical self. Anxiety often makes us neglect our physical health, so you recommit to taking care of yourself. You go to the gym. You eat well, you get enough sleep, you take care of your appearance, not for him, but for yourself. When you feel good physically, it's easier to feel good emotionally. And when you feel good about yourself, you're less anxious about whether he likes you because you like you. Element 4, create a fulfilling daily routine. When your days are empty, when you're just sitting around waiting for him to text or call, anxiety has space to grow. So you fill your days. You create a routine that's fulfilling. Morning routine, work or activities, time with friends, exercise, hobbies, evening routine. You structure your day so there's always something engaging to focus on. This leaves less mental space for anxiety to take over. Element 5, set goals that have nothing to do with him. You set personal goals, financial goals, career goals, fitness goals, creative goals, goals that are about you and your life, not about him or the relationship. And you work toward those goals, you make progress, you achieve things, and that builds your confidence and your sense of self outside of the relationship. Now, let me tell you why the life focus is so powerful for healing anxious attachment. When your life is full, when you have purpose and passion and friendships and goals, you're not emotionally dependent on him. He becomes an addition to your life, not the center of your life. And when you're not dependent, the anxiety decreases naturally. You're not desperately afraid of losing him because your happiness doesn't depend on him. Plus, when you have a full life, you become more attractive. You're that vibrant, interesting woman again. You have things to talk about. You have energy. You have confidence, and that attracts masculine men. The life focus transforms you from a woman who's anxiously clinging to a relationship into a woman who has a beautiful life that a man would be lucky to be part of. Technique 3, the feminine surrender. This is where you let go of trying to control him, the relationship, and the outcome. Here's one of the biggest drivers of anxious attachment: the need to control. You're trying to control whether he likes you. You're trying to control whether he stays. You're trying to control the relationship. You're trying to control the outcome. And all that trying to control, all that managing and manipulating and maneuvering, it's exhausting and it's masculine energy. And it doesn't even work because you can't actually control any of it. So you need to learn to surrender, to let go, to stop trying to control everything and instead trust the process. Now, some of y'all are scared of surrender. You think surrender means giving up. You think surrender means being passive. You think surrender means letting him treat you badly. That's not what I'm talking about. Feminine surrender is not about accepting poor treatment. It's about releasing the need to control outcomes and instead trusting yourself to handle whatever happens. Here's how you practice feminine surrender. Principle 1, accept that you can't control him. You can't control whether he texts back. You can't control whether he's in a good mood. You can't control whether he commits. You can't control whether he stays or leaves. And those are all his choices. And you have to accept that you don't have control over his choices. What you do have control over is yourself. Your responses, your boundaries, your standards, your decisions about what you will and won't accept. So you shift your focus from trying to control him to controlling yourself. Principle 2, trust yourself to handle any outcome. The reason you're so anxious about losing him is because you don't trust yourself to be okay if you do lose him. So you need to build that trust. You need to know deep in your bones that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. If he leaves, you'll grieve and then you'll move on and you'll be fine. If he stays, great. If he doesn't, you'll survive and thrive anyway. When you trust yourself to handle any outcome, the anxiety about the outcome decreases. Principle 3, release expectations about timelines. You want him to text back in an hour. You want him to commit in 6 months. You want him to propose in a year. All those expectations create anxiety when reality doesn't match them. So you release the timelines. You let things unfold in their own time. You stay present in what is instead of anxious about what should be. Principle 4, stop trying to prove your worth. Anxious attachment makes you feel like you constantly have to prove you're worthy of love. You have to be perfect. You have to give enough. You have to be enough. But you can't prove your worth to someone. Either they see your value or they don't. And if they don't, proving yourself harder isn't going to change that. So you surrender the need to prove yourself. You know your worth. If he sees it, great. If he doesn't, that's information that he's not your person. Principle 5, trust that what's meant for you won't pass you by. This is the ultimate surrender. You trust that if this man is meant to be in your life, he will be. And if he's not, something better is coming. You trust the universe. You trust the process. You trust that you're being guided toward what's right for you. This doesn't mean you're passive. It means you do your part. Show up in your feminine power, maintain your standards, and then trust that the right outcome will happen. Now, let me tell you why feminine surrender is so powerful. When you stop trying to control everything, when you release the need for specific outcomes, the anxiety melts away. Anxiety comes from feeling like you need things to go a certain way and fearing they won't. But when you surrender, when you trust yourself in the process, that fear loses its power. Plus, surrender is feminine energy. And feminine energy is magnetic. When you're in surrender, when you're in flow, when you're trusting instead of controlling, you become infinitely more attractive to masculine men. The feminine surrender transforms you from an anxious, controlling woman into a peaceful, trusting woman. And that peace is magnetic. Technique 4, the boundary practice. This is where you use clear boundaries and standards to create the emotional safety that decreases anxiety. Here's something most people don't understand about anxious attachment. A lot of the anxiety comes from being in situations that actually aren't safe. You're with a man who's inconsistent, who's hot and cold, who's not committing, who's not treating you well. And your anxiety is actually your intuition telling you that this situation isn't safe for your heart. So instead of just trying to calm your anxiety while staying in unsafe situations, you need to create actual safety by setting and maintaining boundaries. Here's how you practice boundaries to decrease anxiety. Boundary 1, you require consistency. You don't accept hot and cold behavior. You don't accept a man who's all in one week and distant the next. When you see inconsistency, you create distance. You pull back. You let him know through your actions that inconsistency doesn't work for you. This creates safety because you're not constantly on an emotional roller coaster. You're only investing in men who are consistently showing up. Boundary 2, you require respect. You don't accept being treated poorly. You don't accept disrespect, rudeness, or being taken for granted. When you see disrespect, you address it once clearly. If it continues, you walk away. This creates safety because you're not staying in situations where you're being treated badly and then wondering why you're anxious. Boundary 3, you require progression. You don't stay in situationships forever. You don't stay with a man who won't commit indefinitely. You have a timeline in your mind. If the relationship isn't progressing, if he's not moving toward commitment, you create distance, so you walk away. This creates safety because you're not wasting years in situations that are going nowhere while your anxiety builds about whether he'll ever commit. Boundary 4, you require communication. You don't accept being left in the dark. You don't accept ghosting or long periods of no communication without explanation. When communication drops off without explanation, you don't chase. But you also don't stay available for someone who's not communicating. This creates safety because you're not sitting around wondering what's happening. Either he's communicating or you're moving on. Boundary 5, you require that he meets your needs. You don't stay with someone who can or won't meet your core emotional needs. You don't try to be low maintenance and not need anything. You know what you need: consistency, communication, quality time, affection, whatever it is. And if he's not meeting those needs after you've communicated them, you walk away. This creates safety because you're only investing in relationships where your needs are being met, which naturally reduces anxiety. Now, let me tell you why boundaries decrease anxiety. When you have clear boundaries and you actually enforce them, you create predictability and safety. You know that you won't tolerate poor treatment. So you don't have to be anxious about being mistreated. You know that you'll walk away from situations that don't serve you. So you don't have to be anxious about being stuck. Your boundaries become your protection. They create a container of safety within which you can relax and be in your feminine energy. Also, men respect boundaries. When you have clear standards and you enforce them, quality men step up. They rise to meet your standards, and low quality men fall away. So boundaries not only decrease your anxiety, they also filter for better quality men who create less anxiety to begin with. The boundary practice transforms you from someone who accepts anything out of fear of being alone into someone who has clear standards and only accepts treatment that creates safety and peace. Technique 5, the self-soothing practice. This is where you learn to give yourself the reassurance and security you've been seeking from him. Here's the core issue with anxious attachment. You're looking outside yourself for security. You need him to tell you you're enough. You need him to reassure you that he's not leaving. You need him to validate that you're worthy of love. But as long as you're seeking security outside yourself, you'll always be anxious because you can't control whether he gives you what you need. And even when he does reassure you, it only lasts for a little while before you need more. So you need to learn to self-soothe, to give yourself the security and reassurance you've been seeking from him. Here's how you practice self-soothing. Practice 1, positive self-talk. When your anxiety starts spiraling, when you start thinking, I'm not enough or he's going to leave, you catch those thoughts and you replace them. You say to yourself, I am enough. I am worthy of love. If he leaves, someone better will come. I trust myself to handle whatever happens. You become your own source of reassurance instead of seeking it from him. Practice 2, self-compassion. When you mess up, when you act from anxiety, when you do something you regret, you don't beat yourself up. You treat yourself with compassion. I'm human. I'm healing. I'm doing the best I can. It's okay that I'm not perfect. You give yourself the grace you'd give a friend. Practice 3, celebrate yourself. You acknowledge your wins, your growth, your progress. You celebrate yourself for showing up, for trying, for doing the work to heal. You don't wait for him to validate you. You validate yourself. This builds your internal sense of worth and security. The self-soothing practice is about becoming your own source of security, so you're not desperately seeking it from men who may or may not give it to you. All right, let's bring this together. Your anxious attachment is killing your feminine energy. It's making you chase, overgive, seek constant reassurance, and lose yourself. And that anxious energy is pushing men away. But you can heal this. You can get back into your feminine power. Technique 1, the nervous system reset. Calm your anxiety in the moment before you act. Technique 2, the life focus. Build your own full life so you're not dependent on him. Technique 3, the feminine surrender. Let go of control and trust the process. Technique 4, the boundary practice. Create safety through clear standards. Technique 5, the self-soothing practice. Become your own source of security. When you implement these techniques, your anxiety decreases, your feminine energy returns, you stop chasing and start receiving, you become magnetically attractive, and men stop pulling away and start pursuing. Remember, baby, you are worthy of love. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to prove yourself. You just need to heal your anxiety, step into your feminine power, and let the right man step up to meet you there. If you like this message, click like, click share. And if you want my book, Get Out of Your Own Way, click the link above or below. I love y'all. See you soon.